Alright, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the one and only Wrestling Otaku channel. Of course, your personification of excellence on YouTube and YWC. We're the best reviews wrestling and your three-time YWC channel of the year, and I'm back here. It is now officially Friday night, Friday, August 22nd of 2025, so we are here. It is the end of the week. We're going into the weekend, so hope you all have had a good week. Hope you all will have a good weekend, and as we enter the final week of the month of August, which this month has gone by pretty quick as well. Really, this entire year has gone by pretty quick. We're almost in the 9th month. You know, fall's right around the corner. We're hopefully getting out of the dog days of summer. You know, we've had some good weather, at least here where I am. You know, I know there's like talks of this hurricane that's blowing through like the Atlantic Ocean or whatever. I hope to God we're not affected by it, But anyway, so hope y'all have had a good one so far. Hope you've been enjoying the content that I've been putting out here on the channel, the video I did yesterday and the last couple days, and more content to come certainly, and that of course includes this video I'm going to do here tonight. And of course, as you guys know, in 2 days time, we will have AEW's Forbidden Door pay-per-view on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, which I did my predictions video last night. Hope you guys watched that and enjoyed that. If you haven't, be sure to check it out. It is still up on the channel. And so Forbidden Door I'm very much looking forward to. It's a stacked card, can't wait to see it. And AEW always overperforms when it comes to pay-per-views like this, and it's going to be another good one on Sunday, can't wait. And so and as always, before I kind of get into the topic here, be sure to like this video, leave a comment after the fact, you know, after I kind of touch on what I'm going to talk about here, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, man. As always, appreciate any and all support I can get on this channel. We are currently sitting at 980 subscribers. We are just 20 subs away from hitting the big 1K, 1,000 subs here on the channel. Just 20 subs away, man. We're right there, dude. We're so close, I can almost taste it, man. And I know that at some point within the next, I want to say the next 2-3 weeks, we will reach that. I'm going to reach that 1K milestone, 1,000 subscriber milestone here on the channel. I can feel it now, man, and it's just the prospect of it is just like, it's very, very exciting, and I'm very much looking forward to it. And I'm just so proud of the progress we've made, really for most of this year here on this channel. So if you guys can help out with that, that would be greatly appreciated. But anyway, with that being said, let us go ahead and get into it. So here tonight, I want to talk about a story that has been making the rounds, that has been one of the talking points throughout the week, and just hearing it is one of the things that this is one of the stories that I want to do a video on, and some of which I've already done videos on, but this one here, I just strongly feel the need to talk about this and give my thoughts on this, and that involves the situation regarding one Chris Jericho. You know, you all should probably, you know, you all have pretty much heard the story by now, so you should know where I'm going with it. So the big story with him is that his contract, reportedly, again, nothing is confirmed yet, but reportedly, his contract with All Elite Wrestling, AEW, is set to expire at some point later this year. The report that I read, or the reports that I've seen, you know, just the little tidbits that I've seen, state that his time with AEW is supposedly going to be up to an end. His contract expires at the end of this year, some point in December, which of course is in December. So they haven't given a specific date. Obviously they wouldn't, but yeah, so from the looks of things, and based on things I'm hearing, Chris Jericho's time in AEW may be coming to an end. So if you don't know, Chris Jericho has been a part of AEW for really since their inception, really since their creation, even before their creation. He was one of the guys who was there during the initial press conference back on January 1st, 2019, when they announced AEW. He was a part of that whole thing. So he was very, very instrumental in the formation and the creation of AEW, and he was a big contributor as to everything that AEW did. He was the first ever AEW World Champion, the inaugural AEW World Champion. He headlined the first official AEW pay-per-view, that being Double or Nothing in 2019, where he defeated Kenny Omega en route to going on to winning the AEW World's title. And so it was either Kenny Omega or it was that Hangman Page match where he won the title. I'm kind of getting my events mixed up, so apologies. But I know that Chris Jericho was very influential in getting AEW that exposure and kind of getting that wave of momentum started for AEW in their first year, of the company being in business. And obviously, he's been a big part of AEW ever since. Now, in recent years, he's kind of fallen off a little bit. He's not as much in the spotlight as he used to be. He's kind of taken more of a backseat role, whereas, previously he, again, was the face of the company, one of the faces of the company. He was the world's champion, the first world's champion, first ever AEW world's champion, and he was a big part in the storylines and what, they were doing. He had several factions he was a part of. He was very much in the main event picture in AEW, even if not challenging for the world's title. He was in the conversation. But in the last couple years, he's kind of taken a back seat to other talents who have AEW's been pushing, and they've been featuring them, trying to get some of the young guys, some of the, up-and-coming stars, and some of the more established guys who maybe, don't have quite the name value that a Chris Jericho does, but obviously younger and capable of doing more in the ring, whereas Chris Jericho, again, is kind of taking a step back, and he's more so focused on helping other talents, like, more recently he's had this whole learning tree gimmick and this learning tree faction with Big Bill and Brian Keith. Chris Jericho hasn't really been seen on AEW in several months. I think the last time we saw him was March or April. It's been quite some time. He was last in this segment, a learning tree segment where he basically more or less denounced his lackeys, pretty much, for lack of a better term, in Big Bill and Brian Keith. Now, Big Bill and Brian Keith have been teaming together, but they've kind of slowly, they subtly dropped the learning tree moniker. And obviously, with that whole thing, with Chris Jericho's absence, now at first it was more so, a lot of people, myself included, believed that he was on a hiatus or on a vacation, sabbatical, whatever have you. And now we're hearing reports that his contract might be up at the end of this year, or his contract will be up at the end of this year, leading, of course, to speculation that he may be leaving AEW very soon. And so, in the midst of all this, we've heard a lot of people, a lot of speculation. I've been hearing all sorts of people talking about this. People here, content creators on here who cover wrestling, giving their opinions and such. There have been whispers that, he's on his way back to WWE, or he's leaving AEW, is going to be joining WWE again very soon, or all that kind of shit. Of course you're going to have people say that, because it's what they say about every AEW talent whose contract is up, quote unquote. And so, I just wanted to go ahead and give my thoughts, give my take on the whole thing, both in terms of Chris Jericho's contract situation and where I think he might be, what I think he might do, and kind of, give my thoughts on it, just my personal feelings on it. So, I do believe there's some truth to the story because, again, Chris Jericho has not been seen in several months. He has not factored into any storylines. The whole learning tree thing has more or less been a thing of the past. Again, Big Bill and Brian Keith are no longer adapting the learning tree thing, again. So I think that's a big part of why they subtly dropped that, because I think, people within AEW are unsure of Chris Jericho's future as to whether or not he's going to remain with the company. So it's one of those kind of deals. Now, I know that Chris Jericho has had a lot of, especially in recent years, there's been some whispers about, various things he's been involved with in the past. There's, speculation, a few controversies regarding certain scandals involving him and other talents, specifically female talents or whatever. There was this whole story of a quote-unquote cover-up where he was I forget what the exact story was, but he was I guess harassing or, basically pushing a female talent. I think it was Sky Blue or something like that. I can't remember who it was, but there was this whole quote unquote story about that, and people were trying to say, he's a sex, sexual assault or something like that. I can't remember the exact story right offhand, but there was a story or two regarding that. I personally think a lot of it is BS. I think it's a lot of hoopla, people just speculating without any proof. Nothing has come out about that outside of just various people who don't know any better, who don't work in AEW, basically more or less making assumptions. And there's nothing is proven. Like the Vince McMahon stuff, everything, and this, by the way, I think this dropped right around the time of the Vince McMahon scandal, which, by the way, that was proven. There's actual proof, legitimate evidence of what Vince McMahon did. There's no proof of any wrongdoing that Chris Jericho did. That's the difference. So all this talk about Chris Jericho, what happened allegedly with him, until there's proof, until there's valid proof, I don't believe any of it. I think a lot of it is just bullshit and slander. And just, I think at the time it was a way for people to basically deflect and deviate from the Vince McMahon shit, which obviously is a much bigger story. But yeah, so Chris Jericho's obviously his popularity and his kind of place, if you will, in AEW has taken a hit, in recent years, and it's gotten to the point where a lot of people are saying, oh, he's on his last years or he should retire soon. I think, there are literally people, whenever he would go to an AEW event, every now and then people would chant, please retire or something like that, and his whole gimmick. His whole learning tree gimmick was, predicated on the fact that, fans wanted him to retire, and then he basically took that and kind of incorporated it into his gimmick, where he was basically, trying to act like, a good guy or, an upstanding guy. He was like, hi guys, or, kind of acting overly friendly, and that was kind of part of his heel shtick. So, but yeah, so yeah, Chris Jericho certainly at the he's definitely up there. I believe he's like, what, 50? If he's not 50, I'm pretty sure he's 50. He's definitely up there. Maybe mid 50s. I don't, I could look up his exact age later, but I know he's wrestled a long time. He's wrestled a long time. He was, back in the 90s, he was wrestling, during the days of ECW, WCW, wrestling in Japan, Mexico. He's been all over the world. He's had a long career. And so it definitely is, it's a fair assumption, or a fair thought or opinion that maybe his last years, or his best years in wrestling are behind him, and he should be, contemplating retirement at some point, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, this news of, his contract expiring, I think kind of fuels that even more. So here's my take on the whole thing. Is Chris Jericho's contract in AEW expiring? It may very well be. I'm not 100% sure. I think the fact that he's been gone for so long definitely points to that. I think the fact that they're kind of deviating from the learning tree gimmick, or, Big Bill and Brian Keefe are deviating from that, I think it definitely points to that. But until we have like solid concrete proof of that, until we actually get some legit, evidence, from a credible source, nothing is really confirmed. Like, we hear all the time about wrestlers whose contracts are expiring, or a wrestler set to leave a certain company, and then it turns out later, oh, they re-sign behind the scenes, stuff like that. It's happened so many times over the years, so it's really hard to kind of take reports like this seriously. Like, you have to take stuff like this with a grain of salt, because people can report that, oh, this wrestler's contract is expiring. Oh, they may be on their way out, and then and then it comes out later, oh, they re-signed, or, oh, the report wasn't factual, or whatever the case may be. So while I do believe that there is kind of something, there might be something there, I'm not 100% certain. But I will say this. If it does come to the point where Chris Jericho's contract is up and he does end up not re-signing with AEW, which, again, to me, it's like 50-50 right now. I'm not 100% certain he's going to... I'm not 100% convinced he's going to leave. But if he does, I think it's... I'm just going to sit here and say this. You cannot, regardless of what you think of Chris Jericho personally, you cannot deny the influence and the impact and the his contributions to what AEW has become, since their creation. And he was definitely a big part of that, especially in the early years, especially in the first, couple years of AEW's existence. And you certainly cannot deny what he has contributed, what he has brought in regards to AEW. But I think, with all due respect, I think AEW is at a point now where they do not necessarily need a talent like Chris Jericho. I personally do not believe. I think AEW right now will be fine without a Chris Jericho. In fact, I'll go on. I'll go a step further than that and say that AEW right now does not need Chris Jericho. Just like AEW does not need Cody Rhodes. Just like AEW does not need CM Punk. AEW does not need these older age veteran talents with quote unquote big names. I think they're just fine with what they're doing right now. They've had names of that ilk, especially in the early years. You had your Stings, you had your Jericho's, you've had, other guys, CM Punk's, like I mentioned, other talents or other names, more so, again, more so legends, who made cameo appearances. You even had the guys like Bret Hart and, others. DDP even, I think, made a cameo appearance in AEW in the early years. But I think AEW is at the point now where they do not need to rely on big names like that. And as much as, again, you have to respect and you have to acknowledge the fact that Chris Jericho was a big part of AEW's success in the early years and getting them to the point that they are now. I think AEW is very much well off or will be fine without a Chris Jericho if, in fact, he decides to leave. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is people automatically assuming that because Chris Jericho's contract is up, that he's automatically on his way back to WWE. Folks, just because Chris Jericho, in the chance that Chris Jericho, his contract expires and he does not resign, or AEW does not resign him and he does leave, that's not a guarantee that he's going back to WWE. I hope you guys realize that. Chris Jericho is a name that is enough of a name, or he's established enough of a name for himself, even outside of WWE, to where he does not need WWE to be recognizable. He does not need WWE to be relevant. He does not need WWE to make a name for himself, or he does not need WWE to basically be relevant. Like I said before, he does not need WWE to get noticed. He's more than established a name for himself outside. Even like, when was the last time Chris Jericho was in WWE? Like 2016, 2017. Okay, so he last appeared technically. I actually looked this up while I had the recording paused. His last appearance in WWE technically was in January of 2018, and basically in the back end of 2017, that's where he made his first appearance with New Japan, while technically still under contract with WWE. And then in 2018, he full on basically left WWE, and his contract, or he was let out of his contract, or his contract expired, whatever, and he became a free agent. So basically, it's been 7 years, a little over 7 years, going on 8 years, since Chris Jericho last wrestled, or since Chris Jericho was last in WWE. And all this time, Chris Jericho does not need WWE to be successful. Chris Jericho does not need WWE to make a name for himself. He's more than capable of doing that. He's more than capable of finding success outside of WWE. And we've seen it just based on what he did in New Japan and AEW alone. He does not need to go back to all the people who are just sitting here chirping and spreading all these BS rumors that, he's coming back to WWE, he's on his way back to WWE. Just fucking chill out with that shit. You don't know what Chris Jericho's going to do. Nobody knows what Chris Jericho's going to do. He does not need WWE. He could go back to New Japan. He could go really any wrestling promotion he wants. He could go to Mexico. He could go fucking wrestle for a Canadian promotion. I mean, he's from Canada. Hell, he could start his own fucking wrestling promotion if he wanted. He's got his own band, Fozzy, which I think it's been a long time since we've heard anything about, that band. I don't know if they're still, in business or not. He had his own cruise line, or, his own wrestling show based on a cruise line, Rock and Wrestling Rager, or whatever the case may be. I don't know if that's still a thing. But Chris Jericho's more than capable of finding success without WWE, or outside of WWE. And he doesn't even necessarily need to return to wrestling. He could just full on pursue his career as a musician. Again, he was the lead singer for Fozzy. And also he's 54. I looked that up too. He's 54. So he's like I predicted before, he's mid-50s. But he's definitely at the point now where he does not need WWE. He doesn't even necessarily need to wrestle. Like, if he wants to retire, he certainly could. He's had a prolific career in pro wrestling, stemming from his early days in the 90s, the early to mid 90s, and everything that he did in WWE for 15 years, and then his time after WWE, helping establish AEW and everything, and his time in New Japan, and he's had a prolific career. So it would be more than reasonable for him to say, come out and say, hey, my time as a wrestler is done. I'm going to pursue life after pro wrestling. That could be, if he wanted to do that, I think people should respect him for it, And, but yeah, so all these people just spreading this BS mentality, or this BS rumor of him going back to WWE is just complete and utter bullshit. I don't think it's going to happen. And even if he was interested, what would he do there? What would Chris Jericho do? Like, what role would Chris Jericho have in WWE currently? Like, what place would there be for Chris Jericho right now? Other than to just be another nostalgia act, other than to just be another aged veteran with a name. Like, what would he do there? What would his role be in the current in modern day WWE, in the current era of WWE, especially now that they're so creatively bankrupt, and now that they've got basically no creative vision. There's all sorts of backlash and just fan disinterest in what WWE's doing right now. They're just so seemingly they don't know what the hell they're doing creatively, and all the stuff that's going on. WWE is losing interest day after day, seemingly for most of this year, and just it's seemingly almost damn near akin to a collapse of what WWE is doing, like creatively and in terms of the interest, in terms of fan interest, and just all the stuff they're doing, like with this, with TKO and all the corporate bullshit, just the direction that the company's headed. What reason would Chris Jericho have to want to go back there now? Like it would be basically akin to going back to what WWE was when Vince McMahon was there. And Vince McMahon, by the way, was a big reason why Chris Jericho left in the first place. If you look it up, I happened to just see it on the Wikipedia just now. Vince McMahon was one of the big reasons why Chris Jericho left in the first place. And him going back there, it would be no different than the environment that he left when Vince was still there. So I don't see any real reason why he would be eager to jump back to WWE outside of a payday. Which, I mean, I people are going to say, oh, money talks, blah, blah, blah. But again, what does that do for Chris Jericho's career? Like, does he really want to fucking go back there and risk ruining whatever legacy he has established for himself just for a quick payday? I just don't see it. I just don't understand why he would do that. I just don't understand. Outside of money, I don't see why he would do it. That's just me. I just get the feeling that there's more to this Chris Jericho absence than people are speculating. I think that's, I think he's at a point now in his life where he's trying to decide what he wants to do next. And so, yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But all I'm going to say to kind of close this out here, if this rumor turns out to be true, Chris Jericho, his contract is up. If it turns out that he decides not to resign, or AEW doesn't resign him and he is on his way out, we appreciate everything. I appreciate everything Chris Jericho did, his contributions for AEW and everything, and his time in AEW, especially in the early years, because he's wrestled some solid matches in his history, in his career in AEW. But we're at the point now where Chris Jericho doesn't necessarily need an AEW, and an AEW at this point certainly doesn't need a Chris Jericho. And to that effect, Chris Jericho does not need WWE or to go back there. That's just my opinion. And we'll have to wait and see what happens, man. We'll have to wait and see what happens. We could, for all we know, this could be, they could be negotiating behind the scenes, and Tony Khan and Chris Jericho could be negotiating something behind the scenes. Maybe he brings him back. Maybe, if not in a wrestler role, maybe as a producer, maybe as a standby wrestler, maybe as somebody who's going to be like an elder statesman who kind of gives the other wrestlers, or gives the other guys, the younger guys, kind of advice and things like that. Maybe he sticks with AEW in that capacity. We never know. You don't know. We don't know what's going to go. We don't know what Chris Jericho is going to do. We don't know what's going to happen. All we can do is just wait and see and speculate. And sometimes the speculation gets ridiculous, like with this Chris Jericho going back to WWE rumors. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But yeah, so that's kind of my take on it. I'm kind of 50-50 on it. Part of me thinks that he is going to stay. Part of me thinks he might very well be on his way out. And we'll see what he does afterwards. So that's just kind of where I stand right now. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I'm kind of on the fence about it. And if he does leave, again, he wants to do what he wants to do. You have to respect him. And again, we appreciate, certainly, I don't think I speak for all AEW fans or every AEW fan when I say we appreciate what Chris Jericho has done for the company. And but we're at a point now where AEW will be just fine off without a Chris Jericho. But we wish him well with the rest of his, with the rest of his career and with what he does with the rest of his life. So we'll see what happens. Again, only time will tell. But anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say for that. That's my take on the whole thing. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. I'm going to go ahead and close it out here. So I guess we'll see what happens. If there's any updates in regards to this, I'll do a follow-up video down the line if we get any updates or incredible updates or credible sources, whatever the case may be. So we'll see. Again, we have to wait and see. I'm kind of in the wait and see mode right now when it comes to Chris Jericho and his contract situation. But anyway, that's pretty much going to do it for this. So thank you guys for watching. Once again, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, leave a comment, give me your thoughts on anything I talked about here in this video. And be sure, once again, to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate any and all support I can get. Tell your friends, tell everybody you know to share this video and to share this channel. And let's get to 1,000 subs, man. We're just 20 subs away. Man, if we could get there in the next couple weeks, that would be so great. I would be so fucking thrilled for that. But if you guys can help me out with that, that would be greatly appreciated. But anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say for this video. So thank you for watching once again. Enjoy the rest of your night. I'll be back for more content very soon over the weekend. And can't wait for Sunday for Forbidden Door. It's going to be awesome. And anyway, that's all I got to say for this. Till next time, Wrestling Otaku, I'm out. See you guys later. Peace.